welcome to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show, where we go across country and travel the world with members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Let's go. Welcome, everyone. Every third Monday, every second Tuesday, every second Friday, we get to chat with writers and members who are all part of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Today is no different. It is the third Monday, and we get to chat with Emily Molina. She is a freelance writer and also the author of Tacoma's Tall Ship, The Extraordinary Journey of the Odyssey. Go to her website, molinawriter.wordpress.com. That's in the episode notes. And she has actually been on Big Blend Radio before with Peggy Cleveland, who's also a writer, and Linda Kassam, who is the past president of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association that we call IFWTWA. You can go to IFWTWA, which is IFWTWA.org. So welcome back, Emily. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back. I'm really happy to be here.
Your Meet the Author sign here. I love this. And Tacoma's Tall Ship. I mean, this is such history of people, and what was going on in the world on this ship. So, I know you're a travel writer. You go around, you write a lot about your backyard up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State. But do you feel like you writing this book, you were kind of telling travel stories in a different vein, right? As a travel
In
writer.
a sense, yeah, it was, I love writing about travel, and in my former life, I was an international flight attendant. But I've always had a very deep love and respect for history, first and foremost. So this project really checked all the boxes for me in that sense because of the deep history and then just the early travel and I mean, that's what a ship does, right? Travels all over, and this ship's been everywhere. So it made it really interesting, and yeah, that's one of the things I loved about writing this book.
Now, this ship, the Tacoma's Tall Ship, was docked in Tacoma, Washington, right? And it's had some travels before that. So, didn't its journey start in New York?
Yes, it did. The granddaughter, well, she was actually the great granddaughter of Cornelius Vanderbilt, had this ship built for her husband. Her name was Barbara Vanderbilt Whitney Henry, and she married Barclay Henry. And so this ship was built for him as a sort of really expensive birthday gift.
So this goes into, hey, listen, this is airing in March. So this is some women's history. I was thinking about that, going through the book, there's women aboard this ship. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
often gets left out of history is about women on ships, So
Mm-hmm.
even though, a lot of times the names are often named after women, but so I love that this is tied into women's history.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, even though a lot of times with those early wealthy families like Vanderbilts, the Barclay Henrys, they knew how to sail and they were very, into boating, but they most of the time had a crew that did that for them. So they could just kind of sit back and, live their lush lives of luxury out on the East Coast. But yes, they really only had the ship for about 4 years, and did some really extensive trips, like to Cuba, all throughout the Keys, where they were actually friends with Ernest Hemingway, and he was on board this ship, the Odyssey. And a major trip that they took was to the Galapagos Islands, which is kind of one of my bucket list places that I really want to go. And then after that, the Navy, World War II came around. And so she ended up being donated to the cause because that was another thing people did back then. We want to help out with the cause. And so this beautiful sailboat became a research vessel for the Navy during World War II.
That's the thing is, went to World War II. It was kind of underground and it's had this military history. Then comes to Tacoma. It's had all these different lives. And so a ship is a girl. She's a lady. I'm just
Yes,
saying, putting a plug in there,
it's true.
But,
We
and it went
call
to the
her she.
Galapagos. And I loved one of the pictures shows this little postal service of Galapagos where people were, that's kind of like a whole different postal service than what we know today.
Yeah, that was how that started ages and ages ago when people were out on the sea and they couldn't get letters back home. So they would put it in that mailbox. And then the idea was that if you were there and you were going, you would look through it. And if you were going that direction, then you would take their letter and deliver it. And so, yeah,
Isn't that amazing?
it is amazing, like the early post office.
I know. I was like, I love that because I'm thinking, what, you know, trust you have,
Exactly. And like
and hope.
nowadays that's still a tradition, but I think a lot of people I've heard just put a stamp on it and mail it, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I know, but it's kind of cool though to have that. And then the Odyssey have gone to all these different places. So tell us about your journey into how you fell into this because you've been on board and like kids have been on board and this is there were different there's so much history and that's why there's a whole book about it. Everybody just saying.
well, yeah. So after World War II, the Odyssey continued to be used in research, and it was primarily to develop sonar as we know it today.
Mm,
So once the war was over, eventually she journeyed to the West Coast, and she was in San Diego. See, we call her a she.
right.
I keep saying she because that's what you call boats. They're she's.
Yeah, they are.
But anyway,
Women's History Month, just saying.
yeah, so she wound up in San Diego and continued uh, as a research vessel. And then there was a time when she was used actually as a racing vessel. And the Navy was the ones they were the crew and they were racing the Odyssey in different races around on the West Coast and actually won a very big race in 1950, the Newport to Ensenada race. And, so that was like, she went on to be in it about maybe 24 more times, but that was the one and only time that she won. And Humphrey
And we used
Bogart.
to live in Ensenada. I honestly, I think we maybe have touched on that in the last
Yeah, I think
conversation. But
so.
yeah, we lived out there and we were part of the yacht club, but it's a different kind of yacht club. But anyway, they were
Yeah, well, so
expat
that
happy
very
party.
race that the Odyssey won,
Yeah.
Humphrey Bogart was in that race too, with his beautiful, also Sparkman and Stevens designed yacht Santana. So that's just a side note. But how she ended up in Tacoma ultimately was around 1978.
Mm.
Um, she was at Whidbey Island, was the first stop in Washington with the
Oh
Navy
yeah.
there, but those were Navy pilots. And so she was mostly used as like a recreational vessel for Navy personnel and just military personnel to take out on the weekends. So you can just imagine that her crews weren't always very experienced and one thing led to another and she hadn't been kept up very well. And so long story short, the Navy decided that, we don't want to invest the money in this ship. So what can we do with it? And it ended up on the surplus list. And that is how Tacoma, the Sea Scouts, which is a branch of Boy Scouts of America, it's just basically Boy Scouts on the water, Sea Scouts.
Hmm.
And that is how they saw the Odyssey listed, and there were people in the organization looking for a ship for some of the Sea Scouts. And that was how they found Odyssey. So that was around 1978. And so she ended up in Tacoma. Um, and it took a long time, before they could finally get her back to being seaworthy and in great condition. And but was a program for the Tacoma Sea Scouts and used as a training vessel until very recently. In fact, just this past October, right around the time when my book was published and finally
Yeah,
came
this is
out.
just great timing, right?
No, I
Mm.
know. We tried. I helped start a nonprofit called Friends of Odyssey, and we tried to come up with funds, but the boat just needed too much repairs at that time, and the Sea Scouts just couldn't afford it. So that was when the decision was made to sell the Odyssey. And very sad, but the best part about this is the gentleman who bought the ship is a very wonderful man, and he loves history too, and he's a very experienced sailor from France,
Mhm.
and he has set out to completely restore her to her original glory. And so, even though it was sad that she left Tacoma, we were so happy because now we know she's going to go on to have even more, extraordinary journeys. And
Mm.
so, maybe there'll be another book. I don't know.
You never know. I mean, because she's going to go across to France. So this is, a global, sale. And you got to think about her role in World War II. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that's massive. I mean, it's just like you got to think these ships, what they went through, and stormy seas, and the sailors on there.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty incredible. And the thing about writing this book, when I was really, you know, in the research and just dove in to find out all the details, I really had the opportunity to meet so many people that had these deep connections, and some of them former Navy sailors, that had connections with the
Mhm.
Odyssey. And so just to talk to them and be able to share their
Wow.
stories, it was very meaningful to me. And so I just that's honestly one of my favorite chapters in the book is about the Navy years, and those first naval recruits. So it's just all the different people that were brought into my life because of that. It's been a really amazing
Yeah.
journey.
It's interesting because of your background, also being a flight attendant. Well, I won't say stewardess. You're not allowed. Don't say
Yeah.
cockpit either, and I just did. Haha. But anyway, but we have all these name changes, and who can keep up with them all? But they're good. They're good. Um, in the work that you've done on airplane, in air, you know,
Yeah.
serving people, smiling no matter what is going on, and keeping that calmness, right? You've got to think about what sailors did on a ship. Isn't that the same kind of feeling, do you think? And being in an airplane is kind of like, I kind of think it's like in a ship, it's like a floating hotel, whether it's on water or air. And people get to know hotels if they go frequently, right?
Hmm.
And those hotels, those walls keep the history, right? And you
Exactly.
want to know, you will never know everything, but for the people that have been on it, there's something that they remember of it. That was home for a time. And so
Definitely.
even if it was just for fun, go from her very beginning days, the Odyssey's very beginning days with the Vanderbilts and all the fun times, to like, oh, like, hey, fun is over. Now we're getting real,
Exactly. Yeah.
no more playing with Galapagos Island seashore,
Yeah.
wildlife. Um, we're gonna be serious and go to war, and then now we're gonna come back and now, oh look, I'm host to the kids. Like if you looked at her as a human in a way, because I think she is. She's like,
Hmm.
I know this sounds weird, but like we travel full time. The car to me is part of the family. And if you don't look at your car as this vessel that is your team member, then it's bad juju. Do you know
No,
what I
it's
mean about this?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, it's just that, people say if these walls could talk, and
Right.
that's the thing, maybe it's just an old wooden boat, but it's seen so many different people and so many different memories have been, one of the things that was really interesting too, my son, I presented this program to him after I learned about what the Sea Scouts were and everything, and I was hoping he would really want to join, and he did. And so for about 4 years, he was a Sea Scout on board the Odyssey, and I was a volunteer, and I got to spend the night on board, and there were times when like I got to sleep in the master stateroom, which is the room,
Mhm.
the cabin that would have been, Barbara and Barkley Henry's. And I can remember laying there thinking, "Oh my gosh, Barbara Henry slept here," it was just a really weird feeling. And I don't know, I just have these connections with history like that. So
Yeah, I think that's that thing where you think about, I mean, when you went on there, did you ever think that, oh, did Ernest Hemingway step here where I'm stepping?
Oh yeah, I definitely thought about that. And that also is very exciting because I've always loved Ernest Hemingway and been fascinated by him. So yeah, and
He is nuts though,
yeah,
or he was.
he was pretty, but
But
also
I
very
love
interesting.
him though. You know what I mean? His writing and
Yeah.
everything. But yeah.
Yeah, and just I don't know, it just I think being a flight attendant too, and that helped me because I love people and I've always been able to speak easily to people and ask the questions and just really hear what they're saying.
Hmm.
So I think that helped when I was interviewing different people about the book. Um, and just knowing that they love to talk about it and they're like so excited to share that with someone. And knowing that I was able to capture it in this book that will, be forevermore, hopefully.
Yeah, because you're preserving her history. It's so
Exactly.
important. It gets to live on. Now it's going to have a whole other life that you get to document as you can.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I think you may have to go to France.
I
You're a
am.
food wine travel writer.
I've been
So,
invited. I've been invited.
well,
The
you know,
gentleman that bought the ship, he is, as I said, he's really wonderful. And he has a lot of plans. Right now, the Odyssey's in San Francisco. He has family there. He sailed from Port Townsend, where he did a brief dry dock
okay.
out of the water to do some minor fixes. And the ship has actually been in San Francisco since around Thanksgiving, actually.
Yeah, I think
Um,
she was there when we did our interview
yes, yes.
in December. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so anyway, just hearing he keeps, sending me updates of what he's doing and he's got a little crew that's going to come and help him and that's a very long trip. I mean, if you think about it, he's going to have to go through the Panama Canal and it's just a long
Oh,
journey.
that could be
No matter
interesting.
it'll be like let's see the fifth time that Odyssey's been through the Panama Canal in her life. So yeah.
Who knows who's going to own it at that point? It's just an interest. That's a whole other interesting thing. Who knows?
I know
So
and
yeah, go. You better get going.
I know. I can't wait to go to Cannes though and just see the transformation of the ship and
Mm,
with all the repairs and just back to her former glory, and it'll just be
mm.
so wonderful and amazing and I can't wait to see.
What was it like for kids being on there? Their understanding, and did they? Because being on a ship and then understanding how a ship works, you understand the power of the sea a little bit more. Did you
Oh,
see that
yes.
transformation with the kids?
Absolutely. And one of the things about the Sea Scouts that's so amazing is that it's really a leadership program in disguise because
Mm.
you not
Oh
only do
yeah,
you have
well
to
yeah.
step up and really be responsible, and there's a lot of risk involved. And so it really gives them a chance, the youth, to work together as a team because all the things on a ship that's 90 feet long, that's you can't do it by yourself. You have to rely on others. And
Mm,
even for my son, perfect example, um, he's more of a quieter, shy kid, but I really saw him come out of his shell and bond with his other crew members during that time. And because we live in such a maritime, such a huge maritime community all around the Puget
mhm,
Sound, there are lots of opportunities for these kids to go
mhm.
on and find maritime careers. And so that's another thing that makes this program so
Cool.
great because it's like a segue for them to go into the maritime
Mhm.
industry, which are very good paying jobs.
Mm.
And my son isn't going to do that. He has other dreams, but it was still a wonderful experience. And I know that it meant a lot to him and so many other people too. And that's the other thing. When I met all these different people, their paths would cross mine, and everyone had this story to tell about their time on board and how much it meant to them and the connections and lifelong friends that they made. And, it's just really special.
That's cool, man. And that's the thing. You look at like this ship touched so many lives in so
Exactly.
many ways. Like how many lives do you think on the it's got to be in the thousands
Oh,
actually.
It's got to be over that, just because if you think
Yeah.
about the Navy alone and all the different naval people that
And
were
it was secret. It had secret operatives. You don't know
was
what happened there, you
exactly.
know.
There's things that we don't even know about that the Odyssey was involved in. I was only able to see the things that were, declassified. So,
Yeah.
so there's
You're
obviously,
waiting
yeah,
for things like, come on, let it
yeah,
out, let it out. I want to see. Was it really at the
exactly.
JFK murder? No, I'm
Well, exactly. And I do
kidding. Right.
touch on that in the book about certain things, that were declassified and very interesting things that you just wouldn't expect.
Yeah. Now, what was it like? Number one, I wanted to touch on how you got into writing in general. I mean, because I know you're also a wife of an Army veteran, right? A military
Yes.
veteran.
Hmm.
And you were flying in the sky, so you guys both understand movement and, also procedure and being on time and all those things, right?
Definitely.
And, so then what led you into writing in general?
Well, if you talk to my mom, she'll say that my second grade teacher told her that I was always going to be a writer because I used to do a lot of creative writing as a kid. And I
Okay,
just
cool.
kind of kept up with that. High school as a like a features editor for our school paper and things like that. And then I think being a flight attendant, I always loved to travel, and that was what drew me to that career. And I did a great amount of traveling all over the world.
Mm,
And then, once my husband joined the army and we had started a family, and, that career just wasn't very convenient at that point. I wanted to be
right,
a mother to my kids and be there for them.
right.
And so now, getting back into writing and especially travel writing, it's been a really, I guess, an easy transition for me because that love for adventure and that love for exploring new places has always been there. But now I get to do it and I don't have to deal with passengers.
Excuse me, where's the extra bag of peanuts? No peanuts
Yeah.
anymore. They're
Yes.
gone. There are no
Exactly.
peanuts. So no, okay, so you're traveling around and doing this. Are you doing mostly Washington State? Do you travel beyond? What is your focus as a travel writer?
Well, it's interesting because recently I have been broadening my travel. For a while, I would say about the past 4 years, I've been focused primarily on the West Coast, because I'm
Hmm.
here in Washington and it makes sense. I still have children, they're teenagers. So we're getting to that point, where I can go
Yeah,
wherever, but right now it's been convenient. I've been doing a bit of writing, Charleston. I was just there recently.
nice,
Savannah. I'm actually going to be going to Jekyll Island in a few weeks and Costa Rica.
nice.
So I definitely
I
am.
think yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe the Odyssey went through, Costa Rica.
I don't know. I don't think so. Not yet anyway. But
You
so
never
yeah,
know on a
that's
secret mission. You never
I
know.
definitely want to venture out. I'm trying to go beyond the West
Yeah.
Coast.
Okay, cool. And so most people can go, the is the best place your website to keep up with your travel writing,
Oh
Molina
yeah.
writer.wordpress.com.
Yep, that's a
And
good place to keep track of everything I'm doing. And then I do a lot of local writing too in the Tacoma area on food,
yeah,
because I have a regular column in South Sound magazine, and that's been a lot of fun supporting local business owners, and that's a passion of mine as well. And
cool.
then as far as the book goes, I'm so excited to say that it is now at over 8 local bookstores, and that's from Bellingham to Seattle to Port Townsend, several in Tacoma. And
Awesome.
yeah, so it's been really exciting that other people have, you know, seen the value in this story and just understand the importance of history. It is.
Yeah,
It's
and it's not just for Washington State. This is New York history. This is Galapagos history. This is American history. This is World War II history. This is maritime history. And there's so many maritime, lovers of this. So I know it's local, but this is a book that people can really, attach themselves to, when they're lovers of maritime history, no matter where they are in the world, right? So Amazon, all those places,
Oh
they
yeah.
can get it through that. Okay.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Arcadia
Arcadia, that's who
Publishing.com.
published it. They do
Yeah,
great work for history writers
they
and
are phenomenal.
photographers, and yeah, really good about doing localized history too, which I think is important,
And they're
which is
really
what you did
supportive
too.
of
Mm-hmm.
authors. They're really
Mm-hmm.
great as an author. Just so many different resources, and just like this beautiful sign behind me. That's something that they provided. And, I've talked to
Nice.
other writers that say, wow, they've written for some of the bigger publishing companies and they never felt so much support as they did with Arcadia Publishing. So
That's nice.
yeah,
And that's the thing with like IFTWA, the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, those kind of organizations really help, and the publishing places, the support is important, I think, and
definitely.
like you're saying, the really big ones, I mean, I deal with some of them too, and it's like the authors think, oh, if I just get these really big publishers, everything will be taken care of. And I'm here to tell you, no.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. And also, another point I'd like to bring up is just I'm a certain age now that I'm not going to say, but it's never too late to learn something new. And, I learned how to sail in these past few years, in the past 4 or 5 years. And
Yeah,
so that I just think
that's
that's
cool.
also important. People need to realize like you can take up something new and try something new. I mean, it's just
I
waiting.
mean, did you think you were going to write a book on a ship?
And then you never know, you might write a book about it. I don't know.
How did it lead to you going, okay, now I'm going to have to write a book?
Well, I'll tell you, when we were trying to fundraise, because Odyssey still needs a new main mast. It's 104 feet tall. That's a lot of tree, okay? And
Yeah.
so it was when we were fundraising, I kind of looked to some of the community and the editors that I've worked with in the past, and I was writing a lot of articles trying to get the word out, trying to help the cause that here's what we're trying
Mhm.
to do. This is for the youth. They're learning all this incredible stuff. We don't want that to go away. And long story short, I was like, I was really learning all these different things about the boat, and I thought, wow, I should just write a book. Because by the time I'd written like 5 articles about it, I felt
It
like
was
I
like
wrote a book.
you're getting, once you go down a rabbit hole, more creep up, right?
Exactly. And then I just realized like there's so much history here and it's just too important not to share. That was the key thing right there. And at that point, too, we didn't know if someone was going to actually buy this boat or if it was going to just end up in a scrapyard somewhere.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that.
so that's why the ending is really a new beginning. So
Mm,
that's what makes it even better.
yeah, that's cool. Well, this is so cool. You wrote a book, you're writing. I
Thank
mean,
you.
life changes, and I love that. I mean, we talk about Women's History Month, we can always keep making history, and when we talk about women's history, I have a show, Women Making History, and a podcast channel that, now this episode will be on there too. It's about, celebrating women of the past, the present, and the future. And I think a ship gets to be in there. And I think you've got to think about, the lady from the Vanderbilts that says, hey, I'm going to do a ship for my husband. I mean, come on, I'm going to gift a ship. And she sailed on it, their kids sailed on it.
That's
there
right.
there were women aboard the Odyssey. Now, did she
Yes.
name the Odyssey? Who named the Odyssey?
No, actually, he did. He did.
Yeah,
He was a fan of the classics, and he was a very
yeah.
well-read man, and actually did some writing.
Barclay,
Barkley Henry, yes, he actually
Barclay.
wrote a book of his
Yeah,
own, believe it or
yeah.
not. Yeah. So
Okay,
he named it after the story, the Odyssey.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah,
Wow. Okay, so that's how they knew. Yeah, because he was in the literary field before went into banking, right? He
yep,
was
that's
more
right.
into that, and then went, hey, okay. So that's how the Hemingway connection and all that happened.
Exactly. Yes. I actually talk about the connection with Hemingway in the book. So that's another interesting chapter.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And how many toes does Hemingway have? No, that's his cats. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, where you said you're going to Costa Rica this year? This is exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to be going in April, and it's not a it's not technically a work trip, if you will, but I'm going to make it a work trip. It's pleasure too. But
Well,
isn't it
work is
always?
pleasure when you're a travel writer, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, isn't it always? That's so
Can you
true.
go anywhere without going like, I gotta let people know about this?
No,
Isn't
I
that kind of
can't.
the thing? Like you can't, as you know, stewardess, at least not steward. Oh my gosh, I just said that. Sorry. Flight attendant, when you were a flight attendant, at least you were conversing with people who had gone from one place or going, back and forth. So you had this dialogue, running dialogue of these places that you were flying to, right? In a way,
Mhm.
right? But when you're not in that dialogue zone, how do you travel or go somewhere new and you start going like, dude, I'm going to bug everybody I know. Like,
Yeah, not only that, but I just talk to people, when I get there, I'll just start talking to the locals,
yeah,
and that's kind of the beauty of it. You just have to really get out there and talk to the real people
yeah,
that live there and, find out all the good details about everywhere that you need to visit while you're
yeah.
there.
And the stuff that's not like always published.
Exactly. I love finding those little, out of the way gems that nobody knows about.
I know that's the best. That's the best. The
Yeah.
locals, and then it's like, but you've got to do it so that it doesn't get overrun, and
Well,
get,
right, exactly.
yeah,
There's that.
there's a way to do it, and it's like only the right people will figure it out. If you write it right, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. What a pleasure having you back on the show. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I love
I
it.
can't
I love coming here.
I can't wait to see how what's going to happen with the Odyssey from here, and next thing I know you'll be in San Francisco, then France, right?
Yes,
Or,
that's
I
true.
mean, now if you got an invitation to actually do the sail from San Francisco to Cannes, like what would you do?
I would love to. Actually, I've thought about it, but I'm still not really an empty nester yet. And so
Yeah.
I have obligations with my family right now. So, maybe I'll get to go on a segment of it. Maybe I could just meet them at a port somewhere along the way and just,
Even
have
just be
them
on
drop me
board
off.
somewhere.
Yeah, drop
Like
me off somewhere.
and or just like let me be on board and like give me some champagne. Do you think champagne would be served there?
Um, Not probably yet. Maybe when we are finally in Cannes and like things
Yeah.
are, finished. I think
Make
it'll
it.
be a big celebration. Yeah, well, that's true. Like once the boat actually makes it to Cannes, let's keep our fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
And then, when all the restoration is done, which could take about 5 years to fully restore the ship.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work,
But
for
it's
an old wooden
exciting.
boat. It is exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Everyone, again, Emily's website is linked in the episode notes. It's melinawriter.wordpress.com. And of course, keep up with the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association at IFWTWA.org. Always fun. Take care, everyone, and travel safe or sail safe.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Food, Wine, and Travel Show featuring members of the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. We encourage you to visit their website. We say IFTWA, which is IFWTWA.org. You can also follow us at bigblendradio.com. Happy travels, everyone!